All right, now we're back with part two on the goddess Nanshe, the Mesopotamian goddess Nanshe. Um, so we ended with her family and court, and now we're going to start with other associations. In in the Old Babylonian period, Nanshe came to be integrated into the circle of deities associated with Ningal, the wife of the moon god. In the Gula hymn of Buletsu Rabbi, Nanshe is among the deities equated with the eponymous goddess. Her presence in this text is considered unusual, though information about her usual character is preserved. In incantations, Nanshe could be linked with Ningirima. Invoking them together might have been a result of their shared association with water. Ningirima is a goddess associated with incantations. Also, snakes, fish, and water. Okay, yeah. Another deity she could be paired with was Namu. Namu, of course, is that as a primordial goddess, creator goddess, and she's associated with water too. I thought she was the old Sumerian goddess of the sea, or just the waters, I believe. According to Wolfgang Heimpel, they appear together commonly in sources post-dating the Ur-3 period. The incantation Gatung 2 groups Nanshe with both Namu and Ningirima, and, if the restoration of the text is correct, refers to her as the prime daughter of Enki. While a similar text, Gatung 3, places her in the court of this god, between Namu and Ara, a well-attested servant deity. That is Ara is a goddess, regarded as a servant of the god Enki. Okay. So, a late expository text equates Namu and Nanshe with Apsu, and another figure whose name is not preserved, possibly Tiamat. Wilfrid Lambert concluded this singular source might be an example of the influence of the Enuma Elish, the great Babylonian epic, on other theological works, and as such does not necessarily represent an independent tradition. He also notes Namu was apparently understood as a male deity and perhaps Nanshe's husband by the author, despite usually being female. I was just going to say Namu is a goddess, not a god. In that text, it was considered a male deity? I don't know about that. I'll have to check that. Anyway, and let's see, uncertain associations. There's been a suggestion that the goddess Kiki, also known as Nin Kiki, who occurs in the Zami hymns. The Zami hymns. What's that? Let me see. There are 70 Sumerian hymns from the early dynastic period discovered in Abu Salabik. They're the oldest known Mesopotamian collection of hymns. Oh, that's interesting. As the tutelary deity of the unidentified location Ab Ash. And in the contemporary god lists from Farah and Abu Salabik, was at some point syncretized with Nanshe, as she shared her association with water birds and appears only in early dynastic sources. It has been proposed that a goddess known as Nanshe Gepada, which means the appointed mistress, or Shagepada, the appointed, who was worshipped in in the temple of Gula, goddess Gula, and appears in inscriptions of Namu, was a Nanshe-like figure, due to the similarity of her name and that of the temple Eshapada in Lagash, dedicated to the latter. A deity bearing the name Shagepada, again, that means the appointed, was also worshipped in Uruk in the Seleucid period. And might be the same goddess. Her character is poorly known. Of course, Seleucid period, that's really late. That's 312 BC. That's 4th century BC. Well, it was founded in 312. That's late. But yeah, very interesting though. Let's see. Might have to do a part 3 to Nanshe, but we'll see. Not that I mind that. Early attestations. Nanshe is first attested in sources from the late Uruk period. She is one of the oldest known protective goddesses of specific Mesopotamian cities, next to the likes of deities such as Nisaba, Azina, Inanna of Uruk, and Inanna of Zabalam. Her cult center was a city represented by the signs Ab and Ha, which we went over earlier, which could also be used to write her own name if a different determinative was used instead. According to one scholar, the logographic writing of the cities was patterned after the theonym. The name Nina is employed to refer to it in Assyriological literature. Other proposed readings include Nigin, Nanua, Nina Nimin, and Nigen. Okay, it was located in the southeastern part of what eventually came to be the state of Lagash, 8 kilometers to the southeast of its eponymous capital, and has been identified with modern Tel Zirgol in Iraq. In the past, the site was located on the coast of the Persian Gulf. Sirara, another theonym associated with the goddess Nanshe, might have been a sacred precinct or the name of a temple located in it. Though they might have also been 2 separate nearby settlements, which perhaps at some point fused into a single urban area, similarly to Uruk and Kulaba. So Sirara could possibly be a location within Nina. It is first mentioned in texts from the reign of Entemena. Okay. It is mentioned alongside Nina as a cult center of Nanshe in the 33rd of the Zami hymns from the early dynastic Abu Salabik. It continued to appear in building inscriptions until the time of King Gudea, but in the Ur-3 period it is only mentioned sporadically in theophoric names and names of fields, and later on, its occurrences are limited to literary and lexical texts. A temple named Esirara sounds similar to Sarara, originally built by Nanshe, the king Nanshe, was located in it. It is possible that Nanshe, who was the founder of the first dynasty of Lagash, the first attested local user of the title Lugal, and a devotee of Nanshe, came from a family which originally lived in the proximity of Nina. So Lugal, of course, is the Sumerian term for ruler or king, so he's the first attested local ruler to use that title. Very interesting. All right. Now on to her associations with the city of Lagash. Nanshe was a central figure in the pantheon of the state of Lagash. According to Wolfgang Heimpel, she was the second main deity locally, with Ningirsu. Oh, her and the great gods of Lagash constituting what he deems the essential pantheon, although he notes a longer sequence places them respectively in the 6th and 7th spot rather than the 2nd, after Anu, Enlil, Ninhursag, Enki, and Suen. Suen is Nana, Sin, the moon god. It has also been argued that during the reign of Gudea, the goddess Bao was hierarchically elevated above her. Nanshe played a role in the royal ideology during the reign of Nanshe, and might have been connected to the religious legitimization of his dynasty, as evidenced by the fact that Entemena credited her with granting him rule over his kingdom. Okay. Entemena built a temple dedicated to Nanshe, which bore the ceremonial name Eshapada, which means the house chosen in the heart. It was one of the 3 primary houses of worship in the city of Lagash, next to the temples of the goddess Inanna, and Ningirsu. A shrine dedicated to her, called Iagasulam, possibly meaning the house hall of radiance, is also known, and was located either in Lagash or in Girsu. In the latter city, she was also worshipped in the Sheshgara, or Asheshigara. That means house established by the brother, which was built by Nanshe. She also had a shrine in the Aninu, in which she was worshipped alongside the deity Shul Utula. It bore the ceremonial name Emma, which can be translated as exalted house, and it is also attested as the designation of various other houses of worship in Mesopotamia. For example, the temple of goddess Ninhursag in Adab. The location of a further shrine of Nanshe, Igidru, which means house of the scepter, is uncertain. It might have been a part of the Aninu complex in Girsu, though it also has been proposed that it was located in Lagash or Nina. In Guaba, she was worshipped in the Igigal, literally meaning wisdom, explicitly house of wisdom. She also had sanctuaries in Kisala, which was either located close to Girsu or outright was a part of it, and in Sulam, whose location is unknown. Various festivals were held in Nanshe's honor. Some of the sacrifices made during them took place on the banks of canals. Multiple of Gudea's inscriptions commemorate the rebuilding of Nanshe's temple in Sarara. Furthermore, 3 clay cones from his reign mention the construction of a temple dedicated to her, the Anger, which means House of Deep Waters. I like that. House of Deep Waters. In Sulam, the 12th of his year, names refers to the fashioning of a new throne for Nanshe. In the text inscribed on his cylinders, he designated her as his divine mother, though Ninsun appears in this role in relation to him too. A hymn to Nanshe describes Gudea as her protege. Nanshe's clergy included a head priest, referred to as En or Enmeziana. While the office might have already existed in the early dynastic period, the first certain attestations come from the Ur-3 period. Another title associated with the worship of Nanshe was Abgal, which means wise person, which is not attested in connection with the cult of any other deities. Okay. It has been proposed that the Abgal also functioned as the En in early times, but this is uncertain. Other members of the temple personnel included Gala clergy, harpists, and mourners. Various workmen are also attested in association with them. For example, smiths. I have a hard time saying that word. Smiths and herdsmen. So, then there's a bunch of theophoric names that invoking Nanshe were common in the state of Lagash. Nanshe means the servant of Nanshe. Gemi Nanshe means maid of Nanshe. Lu Nanshe means man of Nanshe. And I like this one. Nanshe Urmu means Nanshe is my heroine. The worship of Nanshe continued in Nina, Lagash, Gursu, and a number of other nearby settlements throughout the Ur-3 period. An En priest dedicated to her, first attested in documents from the reign of Sholgi and still active after assumption of the throne by Ibi-Sin. Ur-Ningirsu might have ruled over Lagash as an independent polity in the final years of the Ur state. So this En priest Ur-Ningirsu is not to be confused with the Ur-Ningirsu, Ur-Ningirsu 2. Not to be confused with that person. Anyway. So next we'll go to other cities. And then try to keep this at a half an hour video each. I don't want to go over that. So we got, let's see, other cities here. So if it goes up to a half hour again, then we'll do a part 3 and finish up. It has been argued that in other local pantheons, Nanshe never reached a comparable prominence as in Lagash. Um, it is not impossible that Nanshe was introduced to the pantheon of Nippur as early as the early dynastic period. An offering list from Gersu mentions Nanshe of Nippur as the recipient of fruit. A contemporary votive relief dedicated to her is also known from the latter city. Nanshe was also known in Adab, but the evidence is limited to an early dynastic literary text, a single offering list, and a handful of theophoric names, such as Lu Nanshe, Mi Nanshe, Nanshe, all from the Sargonic period. In the city of Umma, during the reign of the third dynasty of the local manifestation of the goddess Nanshe of Umma received regular offerings, as attested in administrative texts. She was venerated in Uruk and in the same period too, but only in a limited capacity. In the beginning of the second millennium BC, the influence of the area of Lagash declined, which also resulted in the loss of importance of the local deities, including Nanshe. An analogous phenomenon is attested for many other southern Mesopotamian deities, such as Shara, the protective god of Umma. Evidence for the worship of Nanshe in the Old Babylonian period is rare. For example, she only sporadically appears in personal letters. It is known that the city of Nina still existed, though references to it are not frequent and nothing is known about its religious life. Nanshe continued to be worshipped in and appears in a handful of religious texts from Nippur as well. In the former of these two cities, she received offerings alongside the goddess Ningal in the Isin Larsa period. It is also possible that while sparsely attested in official documents, she was a popular object of personal devotion there. And then the next topic is on the Sealand dynasty. So let's see, we gotta go over the Sealand dynasty, then later attestations, and then we'll get into the mythology and other myths. So let's do the mythology one as a separate, as a part 3. We'll do let's see what we got here. Try to get the Sealand and late attestations in before we close the part 2. At some point, Nanshe became the protective goddess of the first Sealand dynasty. At this time, she was not associated with any cities outside of the former territory of Lagash. The situation, both as a continuation and as a revival of her cult, is possible. One scholar argues that it was an import in the Sealand court, which, according to her, might be why Nanshe's traditional retinue and other Lagashite deities do not have a meaningful presence in the Sealand texts. It is possible the Sealand state controlled her old cult center Nina, but most likely the former Lagashite territories were neither the core area of the kingdom nor the point of origin of its ruling house. Nanshe's cult was nonetheless sponsored by the kings themselves, and she presumably belonged to the state pantheon. She received offerings referred to as Nindabu, which might have been a commemoration of the full moon. She also regularly received animal sacrifices, chiefly ewes, considered to be particularly valuable, while Nanshe is one of the best attested deities in the corpus of Sealand texts, next to Ishtar, Ninurta, Shamash, and Sin. It is not known if the available documents are entirely representative. Despite appearing frequently in offering lists, she is presently only known from a single theophoric name. Ukulu Nazi. The first element of which might be Akkadian and mean exceedingly dark, or is exceedingly dark, or less plausibly it could be Elamite, which means grandiose. Probably not that, though. It's probably the Akkadian meaning. Well, maybe. A single theophoric name invoking Nanshe is attested in the corpus of texts from Nippur from the Kassite period. It's possible that she is identified with a deity named Nazit, who occurs in a text from Susa, attributed to the Elamite king Untash-Napi-Risha, a contemporary of the Kassite king Burna-Buriash II. That is possible. I mean, Nazit and Nazi, Nanshe, just similarity of names. It has been suggested that people from Nina might have settled in the proximity of Susa in the Old Babylonian period already, as evidenced by the presence of a deity named Nasi in theophoric names. Yeah. Attested examples include Puzur Nasi, Puzur Nasit. Let's see here. The text known as Topography of Babylon, or Nintir equals Babylon, most likely compiled in the 12th century BC, indicates that Nanshe was worshipped in the Isagil temple complex in Babylon, where she had a cultic seat named Eshbanda, or the Little Chamber. It's assumed that her presence there was tied to her connection to the god Ea. That's the Akkadian Enki, the Babylonian version of Enki. A late reference to the cult of Nanshe in the Sealand occurs on a Kuduru, that's an boundary stone, of Enlil Nadin Apli of the second dynasty of Isin, that's the 11th century BC, which mentions that a parcel of land which was the subject of described dispute had originally been donated by Gokishar, a king of the Sealand, to Nanshe, his lady, though it is not certain if it refers to a historical document. The name is written with the traditional logogram in this case, rather than syllabically. I have trouble pronouncing that word too, apparently. As Nazi, like in the earlier Sealand texts. Okay. Enlil Nadin aptly also mentioned her in a blessing formula alongside Namu. Further attestations of the worship of Nanshe from Babylonia are available from as late as the 6th century BC, according to Julia Asher Grave. Okay, so I think that will end part 2, and then we'll get into the more mythological citations of the goddess Nanshe. So that should be interesting. Thank you for watching, if you're still with me here. And hope this was interesting and informative, just as part 1. And definitely feel free to put any thoughts and comments about the goddess Nanshe, anything further you would like to add below. And I'll be back with part 3 sometime later. And after I do the goddess Nanshe, I'll probably do some deities that, like, lesser known deities, like that are related to her, like consorts and deities like that. So yep, I guess this will wrap up part 2. Part 3 will be later. And thanks for watching.